Hello, good night. Welcome to Legalize this 20th day of July 2025. And tonight we are going to be looking at two issues. Reparations, in particular, a new pathway to reparations. And secondly, we'll just look at the issue of the change to the oath of allegiance. Let me just apologize for the absence of my co-host, Aisha Mclean. She's expected to be here within half an hour. But before we start, I just want to recognize the sponsors of this program: Gel Professional Solutions, Inc., Gem FM carrying the program on FM radio out of Canada, and also GTAO, Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union.
Attention all workers, your health and safety at work are critical. At Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union, we are dedicated to ensuring you have a safe and secure work environment. If you encounter unsafe conditions or are involved in an accident, take immediate actions. Report it to the company, your shop steward, and make sure it reaches your union. Your health and safety is a priority, and a strong union means a strong voice for your rights. Don't wait. Address concerns right away and protect your well-being. For a safer workplace and a better quality of life, stand with the Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union. Together, we can create a safer, healthier work environment for everyone.
So tonight we have as our guests Ruggles Ferguson, King's Counsel, no stranger to this program, Brother Arley Gill, Attorney-at-Law and the head of Grenada's Reparations Committee, and Brother Bert Samuel, Jamaican Attorney-at-Law. I think, Bert, this is your third appearance here?
Yeah, I think it's number 3.
Yes. So good night, gentlemen.
Night.
On 3rd July 2025.
Good night.
Yes. On 3rd July 2025, Wired JA News carried a report, and I will just read a short section of it. 2 senior Jamaican lawyers have unveiled an ingenious strategy to force Britain's hand on reparations. In a chess move that would make legal historians gasp, Jamaica has discovered a 192-year-old loophole that could force King Charles III to confront his nation's darkest chapter, whether he likes it or not. And we are blessed tonight to have one of the architects of this legal master stroke, as it is described, Bert Samuel. One minute, please. Bert Samuel, and we also have the head of Grenada's Reparation Committee, who could indicate to us how Grenada falls within this, how this new master stroke applies to Grenada, if at all, and also generally what is taking place on the reparations front. After we conclude this section, maybe hour and a half, hour and a quarter, we would then engage Ruggles Ferguson Casey on the issue of changing the oaths. But in this initial discussion, we'll have the participation of all 3 who are all attorneys to assist us in that. So, Brother Bert, I hand over to you.
Yes, the Judicial Committee Act of Jamaica is an 1833 act. the British colonialists made sure that once we got emancipation, they would put their final appellate court in place so that it would have a stranglehold on the former enslaved countries. So it is my guess that 1833 Judicial Committee Act is common to all the English-speaking territories which still have as the head of state King of England, Charles III. So when Frank Phipps, and this use of the Judicial Committee Act, Section 4, is the brainchild of Frank Phipps, who is King's Counsel in Jamaica. I only gave support after he gave birth to the idea, and I've been giving this support because I am the chair of the legal working committee of the Reparation Council of Jamaica, and I'm also the deputy chair of the Reparation Council of Jamaica. So as chair of that group, Frank introduced that piece of law to us, and we ran with it. It basically says this. So Section 4 of the Judicial Committee Act gives the right of appeal from lower courts in the colonies, which includes the Supreme Court of Jamaica, where we appeal to the Jamaican Court of Appeal, and the next level is the Privy Council. And that's Section 3. But there is a Section 4 that says any other matter. Any other matter means matters which are not within the hierarchy of the appellate structure in Jamaica. First instance, Court of Appeal of Jamaica, Privy Council. Those any other matters was what Frank latched on to say, we have a matter, and this is the matter we have to bring to King Charles. And the process is, we give the application, called in the old days the petition, but it is now by the new rules in the Privy Council, an application. So the petition stroke application goes to King Charles. He's to refer it to the Privy Council for advice on those issues that we have raised in the application. And we have sent 3 questions up to King Charles III for him to seek advice from the Privy Council how to resolve them. So it's 3 questions, and maybe one has to give these questions, which are coined by Frank. Firstly, the first question for Charles is, for reference to his Privy Council, is whether the forced transportation of African peoples from their homeland to Jamaica and their subsequent enslavement in Jamaica until 1833 was lawful, because such unauthorized removal and subsequent enslavement was contrary to the fundamental principles of the common law, and because any local legislation that purported to authorize their subjects to slavery was void as repugnant to fundamental principles of English law. That's a big mouthful, but let me just paraphrase it. What it is saying is that you were engaged in human trafficking. You had the Barbados Code of 1661, which was a set of laws sent to the Caribbean to make slavery legal. And remember, there is this Somerset case in 1771 in England, where an enslaved man was in a ship outside on the English harbor. And the case said, Lord Mansfield, the Chief Justice at the time, said that habeas corpus would be granted because slavery was odious and was not tolerated by the common law of England. So the anomaly is, and it's going to surface in our arguments, how could slavery be illegal in England by the Somerset case, and yet it in the same British Empire down here in Jamaica and the Caribbean, slavery was legal? Because one of the hurdles for reparations is that slavery was legal, and therefore there can be no compensation paid for a legal act. So that's the first question. And I repeat, it is to say whether the laws that they sought to establish in the Caribbean, authorizing and legalizing slavery, whether those were not repugnant to British common law. Okay, so question number 2 for advice that Charles is to send. Whether the forced transportation and the subsequent enslavement of people of African descent up to 1833 constituted crimes against humanity under international law for which the UK bears responsibility. Now, once we fit slavery into a crime against humanity, and the Rome Statute of 1998 has designated slavery as a crime against humanity, we need for that to be resolved. And let me tell you why that's important. They have put as a hurdle for reparations to be paid that the statute of limitation, as attorneys we know, with the lapse of 6 years under British law, most civil actions die. And they're saying that slavery is long gone. The statute of limitation means you can get no redress because you're out of time. But when you look at crimes, crimes against humanity and crimes in any other form, they have no statute of limitation. Whenever you find the offender, and that is why the Holocaust victims were able to hunt down those who perpetrated that crime against the Jews, wherever they were, for how long they were hiding. So that's one of the issues we are asking to be brought before for advice. And the last question raised that in light of the said actions, illegalities, whether the UK is under an obligation to provide a remedy to the Jamaican people for the unlawful transport and subsequent enslavement of African people in Jamaica under British rule up until 1838, and for the continuing, and I repeat, the continuing consequences of that crime. Now, that's once questions 1 and 2 are addressed. Of necessity, we go to the question of remedy. What remedy should there be for these crimes against humanity, human trafficking, treating us as less than human? Under international law, it's illegal. Civilized nations cannot condone that, and that it affects our continuance. So we have the remedy, and the remedy is the lock that we want to open into reparations, because that remedy is reparations. That's a summary of the application, otherwise called petition, that Jamaica intends to file before Emancipation Day, which is the 1st of August. So within a few days, that application should be sitting on Charles's desk for him to move forward. Now, Section 4 says that it can be by way of a hearing. It may be a hearing or a consideration. So the big question has always been, once we raise these issues, what do we forecast that Charles will do when he gets this box? How will he get out of this box in light of the common law, in light of the Magna Carta in England, which is centuries old, that gave rights to British people, rule of law, equality of people before the law? How is he going to get out of this? That's my introduction.
Yep. I must say it is breathtakingly brilliant. Ali?
Thanks very much. And allow me to first of all commend you on creating this platform for conversation. I believe that it is well needed in the Grenadian and Caribbean society. And this is my debut inning. I believe once I last longer than 27 minutes, I'll do much better than the West Indies cricket team, which I know you love so dearly. So thanks for having me.
Okay.
And allow me to extend warm and fraternal greetings to Brother Bert Samuel and King's Council Phipps for coming up with this brilliant and mind-blowing initiative. I tell you why.
Thank you.
The CARICOM, the heads of government in 2013 mandated the CARICOM Reparations Commission to advise Caribbean territories, CARICOM heads in particular, with regards to the moral, ethical, and legal arguments for reparative justice. And I think that we have done a tremendous job with regards to the moral and ethical arguments and justification for reparative justice. What has eluded us thus far is how do we answer that legal question? And it's not for want of trying, I dare say. We have scoured the International Legal Forum, and when one look at the ICC and the ICJ, you will very well appreciate that there are significant challenges with regards to how do we bring a claim before this United Nations legal regime. And as such, from time to time, we as reparative justice advocates, we have called for the establishment of an international forum to deal particularly with the issue of reparations for descendants of Africans. And let us not forget for 1 minute our indigenous or first inhabitants of the Caribbean space. So that we have explored what can be the legal strategy, what can be the legal possibilities, how can we bring not just the UK, but within the Caribbean space, of course, the French, Spanish, and Dutch colonizers and slave masters before a tribunal that can deliberate on the issues of the Atlantic slave trade, slavery, and indigenous genocide. And when I heard that news from Jamaica, I must say to you that you in fact sent me that clipping that you quoted from earlier on. But we also have a group chat within the CRC that when that news came through, it was abuzz with excitement. Because not only these legal luminaries from Jamaica have found an act or piece of legislation that we can work with, but also there is a fundamental understanding of the history to really coach and to use that law to bring it within the legal parameters of this 1833 Act. And Brother Samuels hit the nail on the head with regards to crimes against humanity. Now, I have been all over the world, basically. I've been in the UK several times. I've been throughout Europe. And these are questions that we ask all the time. They say to us, slavery gone a long time ago. Where you fellas go with this thing now? You know, we have answered to them. We have said to them, for one, the loan which was generated from the said 1833 Act to compensate the slave owners, the loan which was taken from a Rothschild bank, a Jewish bank, was only repaid in 2015. And
that loan was for what again?
That was
just for the viewers.
Slave owners, £20 million.
For loss of their property,
for loss of property, which is the property referred to, of course, were our ancestors, black bodies, human beings, Africans, not for plantations and sugar crops or tobacco crops, but for human beings. Yes? And that was only repaid in 2015. And of course, Brother Samuels was spot on again when he spoke to the press in Jamaica. And he pointed out that the irony of all of this is that you would have had descendants of the enslaved through paying taxes in the UK would have done their best to service this loan that would have paid the slave owners. So we have to deal with that trauma, frankly. Not only that, Grenada has just celebrated 51 years of independence. And we were the first of the little eight, so to speak, that received independence. Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, and Guyana went before us. So that there are countries within the Caribbean, English-speaking Caribbean, that is much younger than Grenada. Now, although we would have had from Marcus Garvey to Eric Williams to our noted Nobel laureate from St. Lucia, dealing with the issues of reparative justice in the pre-colonial days. And of course, let us not forget that the slaves themselves, or the previously enslaved themselves, demanded reparations. But while we were colonies, one can see how limited or restricted we were to demand reparations then. So that it is only upon having independence or obtaining independence we could really and truly make our governments can make these claims for reparative justice. And let us not forget that the Caribbean continue to have colonies. The British continue to have colonies. That is something that from time that we ignore, that we speak about in passing because, I don't know, because maybe we have our independence, we tend to not speak out loud enough with regards to promoting a full decolonization of the Caribbean space. But that's another forum that we will want to engage in. But I believe that the Jamaica Initiative, as I refer to it, sets up not only the British-speaking Caribbean, but the African Union this year has declared 2025 as the year of reparations. And in the heads-off meeting in Addis Ababa, the issue of reparative justice is front and center. For the very first time, it has held up prominence on the agenda of the African Union. Now, in many respects, we in the Caribbean have led this struggle for reparative justice. And this initiative by these Jamaican legal luminaries is a watershed moment for us in the legal struggle for reparative justice. So that now we follow what our Jamaican colleagues are doing. And we had a CRC meeting last Tuesday. I raised that issue as to know how can we align ourselves with the Jamaicans. We are continuing our meeting again this Tuesday. So, Brother Bert, I suspect that your work may now involve you traversing the Caribbean space to lend some assistance to your comrades across the region to see how we can keep the king busy for the next couple of months.
Okay. Before we but I think you want to say something, but before you come, I just want to welcome Aisha before you come back on, Bert. Good night, Aisha.
Good evening, everyone.
Right.
Good evening, Aisha.
Right.
Good evening.
All right. And
Yes.
Ruggs, I just don't know if you want to.
Yeah,
to
sure.
yes,
Sure. Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for.
We need King's Counsel Ferguson's voice on reparative justice in Grenada. So I'm happy that he's
Indeed.
here.
The voice is always.
I can say to him that his advice that we sought is pro bono.
What's new? It would have been news otherwise. Yes. Thank you for inviting me onto this first segment of the show. I actually thought of coming on about 7:30 because I said by that time you'll be halfway into Bert's illustrious CV career. Let me say how happy I am to be part of the program and to be on. Well, Arley, we are usually in the same space from time to time. But certainly, we have not been in the same space for some time. Yeah. And let me take the opportunity, first of all, to commend you on your tireless work regarding reparations. Tireless, consistent work over the years. And I can say that the first serious lecture presentation I heard on reparations in an organized, structured way was a presentation by Bert Samuel in Antigua. And that may have been over 10 years ago, but
time flies.
Time flies indeed. Over 10 years ago, and it was long ago. I was president of the OECS Bar Association, and so it was before 2016. I believe it's 2014, yeah. And we had these initiatives to have the entire OECS adopt the Grenada model of public lectures, and the first such lecture put on in Antigua by the Antigua Bar Association. The special invitee was Bert, and he really delivered a fascinating, well thought out, well delivered presentation on reparations. And he has been at it before then. And 10 years after, he's still at it, and not just still at it, but seems to be up in the ante in relation to this matter. And certainly, again, fascinating stuff. And as Ali indicated, there has always been the moral and ethical arguments over the years. Of course, very strong moral arguments, and translating it into legal arguments and elevating it to that level is certainly fascinating stuff. I believe that there was an initiative, that the initiative in Barbados was crimes against humanity in relation to Israel. I believe there was an application filed in the court in Barbados within the last 2 or 3 weeks, dealing with Israel and crimes against humanity. And what I can say, wherever the application goes, whatever the result of the application technically, it is a win-win at the end of the day. Because what this offers is a renewed platform for serious public education on our history, on slavery, emancipation, the role of the judicial Privy Council, the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, that 33 Act, and we tend to speak about the Privy Council in very in modern terms as a final court of appeal for matters in this part of the world, and contrasting it with our own Caribbean Court of Justice and the need to move in that direction. But Bert just made a point that I've always been making. This Judicial Committee Privy Council, that's 1833. And slavery was abolished in 1834. And the institution and the infrastructure, what it represented then in the course of history. And what I do find that our people have not sufficiently internalized the history and its continuing effects on us today as a people. And it has surfaced again in the debate, which we will go into a bit later, dealing with the issue of the oath of allegiance and changing the oath of allegiance and some positions that have emerged. And I had the occasion even on Friday to make the point that the minds of our people historically are so conditioned in a particular way that even with the stark realities of history and slavery and now reparations, our minds are so conditioned that they see it as things coming from outside, things coming from the mother country. Our qualities to be judged, not in relation to us and what we do in the region, but what the United Kingdom offered. And that's why the University of the West Indies, for example, when it was coming into being in the early 70s, people felt that we were not good enough to provide legal education at that level to our own people. And there were those who were arguing and continued over the years to say the quality of education in the United Kingdom is a much higher quality.
That's why it's so fitting. That's why it is so. I say that's why it is so fitting that this what I describe as particularly brilliant initiative comes out of the Caribbean.
Precisely, yes, because
yes.
at the UWI today, for example, is not a top university in the Caribbean. UWI is now a top university in the entire world, recognized globally. And so too are many of our institutions. While we haggle about the Caribbean Court of Justice, it is recognized internationally as a court of excellence. We have our own schools in the region that have produced great minds that have served throughout the world globally. We've had just recently Justice Saunders retiring as president of the CCJ. He was not just president of the CCJ. Justice Saunders lectures and trains judges throughout the Commonwealth, through the Commonwealth Legal Education Institute, based in Canada.
I want us to stay on the point, because as you know, we have limited time for this.
Yeah, so I was just saying, let me just wrap it by saying, and the basic points in relation to it were, one, the action offers the possibility, and more than offers the possibility, but the reality now of a new wave of public education around this topic. One, two, it also offers other countries joining in the action or bringing independent action in relation to similar questions, because we have the same act as Bert indicated earlier. And I really want to see the examples I was given before, that again, the battle in relation to slavery and reparations is a battle we have to fight among our own people, whose minds are so conditioned that you still even get resistance internally. So congratulations, Bert, and continue your great work out there.
Thank you.
Yes. But the question I want well, I have many questions, but
Yeah.
You mentioned Emancipation Day. That's a few days from now, eh?
That's the 1st of August, so we have 11 days to go.
And you're working towards that. It must be on the King's.
As we want to have it as a watershed, to commemorate it with Emancipation Day would be hugely important to say that we did this on the commemoration of our freedom.
Great.
So it's not yet filed, but I'm just...
No,
it's not yet filed.
Not yet filed. It's being transmitted to the solicitors in England for them to file on our behalf.
Okay.
But I just want to say thanks for the kind word of my counterpart out of Grenada. And thanks for Ruggles. We are good friends and good admirers for the kind words that have been said. But I also want to tell you what colonialism has done. Now, look, when the Jamaica Constitution was written, it was framed in Buckingham Palace. That's where the Constitution was written. What the Queen of England did was to make sure that she became the head of the judiciary with the Privy Council, became the head of the legislature in Jamaica, head of the executive. Those are enshrined clauses.
You're breaking up a bit, but
wow, it might be my. Am I being heard now?
Yes, better now.
A little better.
A little better. Yes, I actually thought it was from my end. Yes, you were breaking up a bit, but so. Right. Yeah, probably you can repeat what you said last.
When the Jamaican Constitution was written in Buckingham Palace. I'm being heard?
Yes, yes.
Right. And what the colonial government did was to make sure that the Queen of England was the head of the Jamaican judiciary through her Privy Council, the head of the legislature, and she was the head and continues to be the head of the executive. She visited Jamaica in the 70s, and she said to our parliament, while addressing our parliament, she said, my government in Jamaica, so it's her government. Now, King Charles, her son, King Charles III, is both the head of state of England and the head of state of Jamaica. So he wears two hats. And therefore, we are saying, you have imposed on us that you are the head of state of Jamaica. Your mother did that. So we are appealing to you as the head of state of Jamaica to deal with the issues which arise and the liability which arise in your country, of which you are also the head of state of the United Kingdom. So that's very interesting to us because it comes out of the history and the irrationality and the anomalies that come with colonialism. So we're saying, you created this law, now you better adjust it and work with it. That's one of the... Also, I'd like to remind you that in Jamaica, when the Queen of England came here in 2002 for her jubilee, her golden jubilee, 50 years on the throne, Rastafari, the form of Michael Lorne, who is a Rastafarian and an attorney, we filed and marked her in the Jamaican Supreme Court to declare that we needed reparation and to speak about the crimes against humanity. And interestingly, repatriation of Rastafari to be transported back to Africa and to be settled there. That case came before a Jamaican judge in 2002. That's 23 years ago. I had the privilege of arguing that case on behalf of the claimants, the Rastafarians, and the judge kicked us back by an important and interesting colonial point. The judge said, how can you bring Queen to be paying as a party in her court? The Jamaican court is her court. And therefore, that's one of the reasons why we were kicked out of court. Because it was declared that we are in the Queen's court. So that's part of the we are in the morning. We still say, God save the Queen at the beginning of every court. I don't know if that happens in Grenada. So that burden is still on the Jamaican people, where we are showing respect and reverence to a monarchy who in 1661 formed the Royal African Company, which transported and had the monopoly in the Atlantic Ocean for the movement of enslavers. So that monarchy itself, for 2 centuries, collected monies from the charters and took African Jamaicans here and made money from the transportation and the forced removal of Africans in human trafficking. So the monarchy itself has gained great wealth from the trafficking of enslaved people. So Charles II in 1661, the bloodline of Charles III, made huge amounts, millions of pounds for our blood, sweat, and tears.
So
Thank you very much, Bud, for bringing in that point. And if I may come in here a little bit.
Yes, go ahead, Ali.
The jurisprudence coming from the British courts, even back then, has been conflicting, because Bud spoke earlier with regards to the fact that Lord Mansfield, in that judgment in 1771 or thereabouts, noted that slavery is illegal in the UK, in Britain, in England. And also, a few years later with the Zong case, we use that case quite a bit to show that the British courts recognized that legally that slaves were referred to as property, to be bought and sold and to be insured. What happened in the Zong case? Jamaica seemed to always be in the middle of everything, or middle of most things. But that ship called the Zong was carrying slaves to Jamaica. And whether or not the captain was inexperienced, he lost his way, terrible weather and so on, they experienced some difficulties. And the time for arriving in Jamaica went way past. And they threw over 133 Africans into the water, drowned them. It was murder by throwing them into the high seas. And these slavers, slave ship owners, had the audacity to go to the British courts to claim insurance compensation for deliberately throwing these black people overboard. And so that Lloyd's of London, this huge reinsurance company in the UK, because we have to remember that the Atlantic slave trade and slavery were the most lucrative business in the UK at that time. But the court held that these slave ship owners should receive compensation from the insurance companies because they had duly insured their property. You see? So that's extremely important, so that when I heard about, so in our discussions throughout the region with regards to our legal approaches, the legal possibilities of making a claim for reparations, all these case law came to light. And I think that the Privy Council had it coming with Samuels and Phipps. And I believe that the Privy Council would have to, once and for all, and as Mr. Ferguson pointed out, is a win-win situation. Whether or not the King docket and do not bring the application forward, but once it has to be determined, I believe that we're on solid ground with regards to arguments. The world awaits the arguments.
That's true.
But just to 2 points Ferguson made earlier, but just coincidentally, you speak about emancipation 11 days ago. Grenada, for the first time in its history, post-independence history, will be celebrating, will have the 1st of August would be a public holiday for emancipation.
Great.
For the very first time. And we in the Grenada National Reparations Committee will want to take whatever small credit for lobbying for that to be done over the last couple of years. Because Emancipation Day was celebrated on the first Monday of August. And we thought that, and we argued that just like Christmas is on the 25th of December every year, we believe that we are hurting ourselves by not having August 1st as a public holiday and to commemorate that day as Emancipation Day. And that leads us now to where Ferguson King's Counsel spoke to earlier when he made mention in passing with regards to the changing of the oath and the fact that we have a challenge for ourselves here in Grenada and here in the Caribbean as descendants of the enslaved with regards to our mindset, with regards to our outlook on things African, on things, on issues of emancipation and so on. Because that Jamaican initiative is worthy of headline news across the established media outlets in Grenada and across the Caribbean. But I am of the respectful view. I have not heard no other platform other than Legalize that has sought to make this subject of national discourse. And that's where we are. So we are experiencing groundbreaking initiatives with regards to reparations, with regards to small islands in the Caribbean, with regards to our brilliant minds in the Caribbean, doing the utmost to hold a powerful nation accountable for the crimes against humanity of our predecessors. And here in Grenada in 2025, an issue like this would not bother the editors of national news networks to have this matter as headline or on beyond or on their featured programs. And that is a constant struggle of it. I have done more interviews in the UK and Netherlands and all over the world than in Grenada on the subject of reparations.
That's a very interesting point, Ali.
No, that's the reality of it.
I have been contacted by the Telegraph, and they have printed and quoted me in England, The Guardian, and I did this morning a documentary on the issue from a television station out of the UK. So it's getting attention and traction.
It will. I have done 3-4 documentaries with outlets from the UK on reparations with regards to our initiatives here in Grenada.
Bert and Arley, what I wanted to know, do you think that generally the public is aware reparations is a topic that has been on the block for a long time? Do you think that it's slowing down? People are losing interest?
I would say firstly that the Black Lives Matter movement propelled us tremendously. When the young people in England took Colson's statue, that enslaved trader, threw it down in the river, eventually they were charged but acquitted. That was a big push for reparations. Continue to gain traction because, as was said before, in Ethiopia, African countries themselves are now seeking reparations. They are following through from our experience. So yes, the answer to that, it has gained traction, moving fast, but it has a lot of pushback. A lot of persons are ridiculing the claim because of the hurdles that. But we think that.
But you're breaking up.
Guys, Bert, you're breaking up so badly. Like we heard a part, and then.
Yeah. It's a pity. It's a real pity because.
Indeed.
Just to further what Bert was saying, Aisha, the subject of reparations is now one of the leading global topics of discussion. The subject of reparations is discussed now within the United Nations. The United Nations are sort of United Nations Permanent Forum for Peoples of African Descent. The last chairperson of it was Dr. June Suma from St. Lucia, and she was a candidate nominated from us here in the Caribbean, and she did a stellar work for the past year and so.
I'd like to make a point about the growth of the
Go ahead,
movement.
but yeah.
Yeah, we've had the heirs of slavery, the heirs of enslavers. They are white families who have come to Jamaica. They've come to Grenada too.
Yeah.
And they said they want to pay reparations and make apologies. So we've had last in Emancipation Day, a family out of New Zealand came to Jamaica because they traced the line to some enslavers in the parish of Hanover in Jamaica, where there was an uprising that many African Jamaicans were killed. They came here to apologize for the wrongs they did to Jamaicans. And we have had at least 5 families who have come to apologize for slavery. We have had universities also who have been built on slave labor and slavery. The universities have pledged to give scholarships so that institutions and individuals are coming. It is the British state that is late and is resisting coming. Every time Charles speaks of it, about it is unfortunate, it is regretted, but he's failing to apologize because he has taken legal advice that if he gives an apology, then it strengthens the claim, opens the door for reparations.
So, Bert, while we're here, can you just give us some insight as to the strategy that you are intending to use going forward with the claim?
Oh, yeah, fine. And it has been said to be one of the strategies is whether we win or lose, for want of a better word, we would have won. Because dare the British, throw aside those 3 questions. Dare them do that. Remember, Charles is the head of state of Jamaica. How can our head of state ignore a historical fact, a historical thing? You see, when Cameron came to Jamaica in 2015, he dared to say we should not peer into the past. We should not remember slavery. We should look forward and not look backwards. And we caught him laying a wreath 5 years before he came here to the Holocaust memorial built in London, where he was laying this wreath to remember the Jews' 10-year suffering, whilst he's telling our 400-year suffering that we should forget it. So one of the tactics is to bring out these contradictions, because Cameron, the British Prime Minister, his great-great-great-grand uncle owned 100 enslaved persons in Jamaica and was paid £1 million. So when we highlight the strategy, highlight these facts and put them on the spot to answer the fact that there's a connection between slavery, all those who were compensated with the £20 million, it's a matter of record. It is recorded with the names and the amounts, including the Anglican Church, who had enslaved people and who branded their slaves in Barbados. They actually branded their slave, the church, in Barbados. So these horrific things cannot be cast aside. It's more than conscience. It's reparation.
And just to add, the legal initiative as a strategy should not be seen on its own.
No.
What we have done is that we continue to put moral and ethical pressure on these powers in Europe by advocacy, by campaigning, by lobbying, so that the political pressure that we continue to exert by our prime ministers, our government speaking on the issue of reparations at the Commonwealth heads. Remember now, for the very first time at the Commonwealth Health in Samoa, we were able to get the issue of reparations on the communique. And our heads of government from Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, Ralph Gonzalez, Mia Motley, who chairs the Prime Ministerial Subcommittee, to Prime Minister Holness and so on, they have spoken at that level with regards to reparative justice. Gaston Brown, Prime Minister of Antigua, has been a serious campaigner for reparative justice as well. So we have the political pressure, so that what was missing arsenal of strategies was the legal approach. And I believe that we have found a strong and worthwhile legal button to press. And the Jamaicans have now pressed it for us. And so that we continue exerting political pressure. We continue on the ground by campaigning, lobbying NGOs within UK and Netherlands and so on and so forth, by speaking to the press, by trying to educate the European public, the British public, and so on in regards to reparative justice. Because I can say to you that one of the things that we have experienced in our work is that the British public is scared, When they hear that, this reparations thing is billions of dollars and so on, they probably think that we're coming to bankrupt the economy. But we have to explain that this is not what reparative justice is about and so on. So that the legal approach that our Jamaican colleagues with great genius is pioneering now is another avenue of struggle, and to put that sort of pressure on the king directly now with reparative justice. So it must not be seen as a vacuum. You have legal pressure, the political and social pressure.
Yeah. But how soon? Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, but also right for the British monarchy and the British government.
Yeah. After it is filed and delivered on 1st of August.
Yes.
How soon or how long? You mentioned it could either be a hearing or consideration.
Yeah. Well. From there on, if there's a hearing, I have been asked to join the team to go before the Privy Council. That would be a great honor for me on behalf of my ancestors. The team will consist of 5 attorneys from Jamaica. The British team will be there, but the Attorney General of Jamaica should lead that team in the argument. So we're expecting the Attorney General, because the matter is filed on behalf of the people of Jamaica. I don't think we could talk about reparations without talking about the Brattle Report. Judge Robbins, a Jamaican who sat on the International Court of Justice, assembled a team, and I'm sure you're aware of the Brattle Report, where some surveyors, actuaries, and economists came together to assess what is due to African Jamaicans who were enslaved. They used, for example, the minimum wage in England, the duration of the slavery. They came up with a wage pay, and also tried to assess the general damages by way, what is the value of the suffering, the deaths, the rape, all of those things were quantified. And they came up with figures which are scary for the British public. But as Judge Robinson said, we must not be afraid to speak truth to power. And it's 9.4 trillion US dollars that the British has due by that assessment to Jamaica for enslavement. Let me repeat, 9.4 trillion US dollars is what the assessors, the economists, and those who worked those figures came up with. And each Caribbean island, when you look at the Brattle Report, you can Google it. The introduction sets out the claim in a very summary way that the Brattle Report is what is haunted the British public. Because listen, they have already been burdened with 20 million pounds, which is 3 centuries ago, and they are scared about that. But Robinson makes the point, and I agree with him totally. We cannot reduce anything. We would be disrespecting the ancestors. And Robinson's claim is, let's use the figure to negotiate. It need not be that we ask for all of that. And part of what we want is the artifacts. There are some Taino gods carvings which were found in Jamaica in the Carpenter Mountain, which has been put in the British Museum, which has attracted their own tourist industry and enriched Britain. So what they've done is stolen our artifacts, brought them there. The Tainos suffered genocide under the British and the Spanish. So therefore, part of reparation is the return of the artifacts to Jamaica. They are resisting that. They were stolen from this country, and many parts of Africa and the rest of the Caribbean. The second thing is we think that they should finance tertiary education free for all Caribbean citizens who qualify. Tertiary education. We also feel that more beds, hospital operating theaters must be made because, as you know, diabetes is traced on medical and scientific grounds to the diet that we were fed with during slavery. And that is why Barbados has the highest amputee rate in the world because of diabetes. So these are the empirical evidences pointing to the diet fed to us, not to mention the mental things. I don't know if the Caribbean has bleaching. Jamaica has a huge problem with black people bleaching their skin to look like the Queen and the King of England. And that mental slavery, that messing up the minds of black people because they made sure to promote the mulattoes, were in a hierarchy, white, then mulattoes, then the Sambos. That's part of the hierarchy for privilege and opportunity that colonialism left in Jamaica. So people want to look white.
So that when Cameron speak about let us not look back, our answer to him is that we're not just looking back. We are considering our present situation and our future, because the legacies that this Atlantic slave trade and slavery has left us is with us now and continues to be with us. And Bert just highlighted the issues with regards to our education, to our health, the mental trauma and psychological damage that we have suffered as a people for generations. And the fact that the underdevelopment of the Caribbean is as a direct result of the exploitation of our societies by the European powers over 200 years of slavery and 400 years of colonialism. And it continues.
And my father tells me that when he was at school, one of the anthems from Britain that he had to sing and know the words to was, "Britannia rules the waves. Britons will never be slaves." Now you have the descendants of slaves singing a song celebrating the fact that Britons have never been slaves and will never be slaves, singing those songs in brainwashing us into adoring British history whilst we are suffering under their enslavement.
Before
and that is quite again. Sorry, Aisha, go ahead.
I just wanted to bring in some comments and questions that we have from the audience. So I'll allow you to go, Casey, and then after I'll just raise those comments and questions. So you can go ahead.
Yes. We need to see in all that we do, the conditioning of the minds of our people. Over the years, and even the difficulty, as Bob Marley is often quoted in the iconic song "Emancipate Yourself from Mental Slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds." And we have been so conditioned, and actually you see it more and more now, not before, but more and more now, how conditioned our minds have been. And I really want to make the point to that, the public education is crucial, but the Reparations Committee cannot see its work limited to even talking and advocating, but we need to do some rewriting of our history. The actual rewriting of our history and how it's interpreted by our people. Because people just see history as something you do in school, you pass, and that is it. You move on. It becomes history indeed. But history linking history with our everyday lives, that has to take place more and more. And when Ali was speaking, again, it has hit me too. I always make the point, the Caribbean, we have such a rich history in the Caribbean, extremely rich history. And we don't preserve that history. We have an oral tradition, that is not reduced to writing a lot. Writing, our people are not known for as being writers and the preservation of that history. So, for example, I remember in Germany many years ago. I was in Germany, and part of the program was a visit to a museum. It was the I think the Buchenwald Museum in Leipzig, right? And that was basically, that museum reflects the torture chambers of Jews. They're like the torture chamber, and that many years now, more than 30 something years, I have images on my mind of that in that museum, the things you saw. And when you walk through these museums, is not about hearing things, it's about seeing history unfolding before your very eyes. Do we have any slavery museums in the region? Anything that reminds us about that period? And the stark reality is no. Symbols are important. Symbols are crucial. If you go to Europe, Europe, they preserve their history. You have buildings that are 1,000 years old and being used today, right? Not 200 years old, 1,000 years old. You have museums throughout. And even South Africa now, I think post-Mandela, and there's several museums. When you go to the museums, as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
When you walk through Mandela's museum and so in South Africa, that's when you confront history in real time.
Let me say this, Casey, briefly. That one, we have commenced the rewriting of history. Two things I can point out to you. The Reparations Committee, we have lobbied the government successfully to reintroduce the teaching of history as a subject in lower secondary school forms. He has removed that. And a couple of years ago, we were able to get this particular administration to reintroduce the teaching of history in our secondary schools and primary schools. Secondly, Dr. Nicole Philip Dow has published a book up to from 3 students on Grenadian history. The purpose of which, again, is to rewrite our history and to tell our story. So I can say to you that we have embarked upon that work. And with regards to the museums and the symbols which you speak of, the 10-point CARICOM plan envisages, and one of the things that we demand is that the part of reparative justice, the resources is used to fund the very thing of which you speak of. That is the museums and other, and Bert spoke about the return of our artifacts and so on and so forth. Because it is extremely important, as you rightly pointed out, that we must have museums and facilities here where our people can learn our history. But as you very well know, Grenada now does not have a public library, does not have a proper national museum, and I cannot speak with regards to the state of the government finances. But we know that there is no firm commitment from any government as to when we are going to get a national public library and a national museum of note here in Grenada. So that in our demands for reparative justice, that is one of our demands.
Okay, I wanted to read the comments.
Yes, thank you so much, Arley and Casey, for your comments. So I just wanted to read some comments from the audience and some questions. So Barbara Andrews says, "We gonna wait until the Privy Council makes a ruling that they will no longer be the Caribbean last court of appeal. Then What will we do? That's a question. Jacqueline McKenzie says, I'm sure the team will be looking at the different views on what Somerset really does and how the later case of RV inhabitants of Thames Ditton provides a contrary view. But it's a bold and credible move, especially as it's unlikely that King Charles will refuse permission. What the Privy Council does thereafter is another matter. Their privy councillors will be mindful of the repercussions post a declaration. We have seen bad precedent created in Martinique's case in France's Court of Cass. Caroline A. Murray comments, greetings to all. Jacqueline further says, Zong was murder, not inefficient. The boat ran low on supplies, so they tossed over 30 Africans overboard. They then had the audacity to make an insurance claim. Cyrus Griffith states, I wish to submit that the letter to King Charles should have costs attached to it with regards to the amount of monies to be paid. Jacqueline states, great news about Emancipation Day in Grenada, and I certainly agree. Jomo comments, if the other reparations commissions think the Jamaican strategy is brilliant, why don't all CARICOM countries join the claim? Arley, that's a question for you. Claude asks, what can be done to get Caribbean people to change their nonchalant attitude towards reparations? Jacqueline further comments, the political work is going to be the hardest part where the UK is concerned, based on our current government and their likely successors. And Jomo further states, there is an impressive museum in Guadeloupe with respect to the museum about history and slavery. So,
sorry, go ahead, guys. Finish.
Oh, yeah. So, Arlie, I just want you to answer this question from Claude, I think it is.
From Jomo, I guess.
Good night, Jomo. And
which is a question I was.
Is a tireless worker for reparative justice himself.
He says, if the other reparation commissions think the Jamaican strategy is brilliant, why don't all CARICOM countries join the claim?
Yes, I addressed that earlier, so I suspect Jomo joined us did, because I noted that this week we had a CRC meeting, which is CARICOM Operations Committee meeting, on Tuesday, and I raised the subject, and the meeting continues this Tuesday. So I can say that we in Grenada, we are of the view that we should try to engage the Jamaicans to see how best we can align and join the initiative. And I agree with Jomo. I believe that the other Caribbean countries that are not republics, of course. Yes, so we have to be mindful of that. That are not republics, that still have the king as head of state, should explore the possibilities of joining, of making similar claims. So, Jomo, we are on board. We are on board, and of course, we have to, as the individual reparation committee, we have to get our governments on board, because as Bert painfully pointed out, this is a government initiative. He's advising the Jamaican government, and the Jamaican government, through the cabinet, have adopted that approach, and they're embarking on it. So that we have to do similar here. We have to lobby our government, bring our government on board, but I believe that we should join the Jamaican initiative. I am of that respectful view.
So I wanted to ask the question. Sorry, go ahead, Jomo.
Yes. I just wanted to clarify. But is the action being filed on behalf of the state of Jamaica formally? I heard you mention about the AG leading the arguments. So the filing is by the state of Jamaica.
Yes, the people of Jamaica, led by the Attorney General, who represents the people of Jamaica.
Okay.
Yes. So my question, which I was holding a while, but even before probably Jomo made his comment, I wanted to ask it a different way. Why has Jamaica decided to proceed on this matter alone at this time?
Okay, because fact, I'd like some support from the Grenadians because I have been in CRC meetings where I updated on what we were doing. So we were telling the other Caribbean countries what we were doing.
Okay.
A collective, because he's the head of state of Jamaica, so you'd have to have a consolidation, but it has to start with individual claims, so that the legal advice is it has to be done by each state that has the head of state as their head of state. Now, I know, and other attorneys, once the matters are of similar issues, consolidate the rationale,
Consolidate.
they can be joined.
Yes. And in my view, I think for many reasons, that is the better approach. You can have coordination, but symbolically, it would be probably more effective for Jamaica, in this case, leads the way. Other countries bring action, and then it is consolidated.
That's right.
I think the public effect would be much greater.
But of course, you don't want to delay the action.
No, because the republic, remember, we're moving to become a republic. If we became a republic, we would have lost the head of state, Charles. Time it and move on it faster, because there is a republic movement. So we had to be ahead of becoming a republic.
So Bert, I just want to, based on the fact that you said that Jamaica is moving to become a republic, I think it would be an ample time for me to just pull in Casey here with regards to the change of, well, the amendment to the Oath of Allegiance in Grenada here. And Casey, one of the grueling, or I should say, one of the most asked questions regards to the change or slash the amendments to the Oath of Allegiance. Does this mean that Grenada ultimately is moving to become a republic? Is this a step? Is this the first step? I just want to hear your thoughts on it, and generally just give some insight into the move.
Yes, thank you. And ultimately, I think the natural progression would be to establish a republic. But I want to say there is a distinction between moving to a republic and achieving this amendment as a single item. The move to a republic captures a much broader spectrum in which we have our own local president, but we need a referendum for that. And that's part of the issue based on our constitution. If we were to move towards a republic, we need a referendum. In Trinidad became a republic in 1976. They did not require a national referendum. In fact, many of the countries can make significant steps, for example, without a referendum. And as I frequently point out, Barbados and Guyana, they were able to immediately lead the way in 2005 to become the first two countries in the region to join the appellate jurisdiction of the CCJ, but they didn't require a referendum. Belize became a member of the appellate jurisdiction in 2010, and Belize did not require a referendum. You needed special majorities in the respective parliaments, but not a referendum. Dominica and St. Lucia subsequently followed, St. Lucia more recently. None of these 5 countries required a referendum. Grenada does. And here with the oath, for example, it's a constitutional amendment, and in fact, it will be the first.
Yes. Ruggles, because Bert is here, baby. I don't know, but you know the issue, right?
I didn't hear that.
Are you aware of the issue that he's speaking on?
Yeah, I'm aware of it, and I'm a keen at this moment. However, the segment that I'm really going to leave, because I have another appointment.
Okay, good. So we move to that. And Ali, you have to leave also?
Yes, I'll take that, use the opportunity to jump off here as well. But to once again congratulate Bert and his Jamaican team for this groundbreaking initiative. This initiative is welcomed and heralded across the region. Wow. Yes, let me say to King's Council Ferguson that I fully support the initiative with regards to changing the oath of allegiance. It is another step in the colonization. And you have been a tireless worker with regards to the campaigning for the CCJ to be final appellate court. I have campaigned and will continue to campaign for the king to be removed as head of state so that maybe it can be achieved by steps, and changing the oath of allegiance is a good step. But in Grenada, the queen and the king photographs used to be above the head of the judges of the Supreme Court. Well, since Hurricane Ivan, King Council, I haven't seen those photographs gone back up as they should, but I know when I just started to practice, the photographs of the Queen Elizabeth was very prominent in our court.
Horrible.
I stay silent on it so that no one remembers to put it back up. That's why I've been so silent. I do not want to remind the colonial minds that they're missing something in there. We no
Well,
longer have the wigs. We
Before
no
I go,
longer have the wigs, but King's Council, maybe it's a good time for us to get rid of the gongs.
yeah.
Right.
Well,
Ali,
But I will leave that there.
before you
Thank
go,
you so much for having me.
yes.
I go off now to Calypso's.
1 minute before you go, Ali. But wanted to say something before he goes.
yeah, I just want to say thanks for the invitation. I'm very pleased removing that oath, adjusting it. We need to take steps in the right direction. I know that once you're going into a referendum, please make sure that there's public education, because there's still the retention of miseducation in the population that think we can't survive without the Queen. And I'll say I've chosen Grenada to be the place that I'd like to write my memoir. So I'll see you guys when I come down. Okay?
We're looking
Great.
forward to seeing you, Bert.
Okay.
Thank you, Bert. Night,
Again,
everyone.
You're always
enough
welcome,
respect in
but
terms,
Take
enough
care.
respect in
Bye-bye.
terms of that work.
Okay. Take care and bye-bye.
Right, good. Ali, before you go, Ali has gone.
Yes, he dropped out. He came off.
All
Yes.
right, because George Prime had something he wanted to raise with it. Okay, but let's just proceed with the other matter.
So yes, Casey. So
yes,
I briefly asked you about
right.
the oath of allegiance and move into republicanism
Yes,
in Grenada.
yes.
I said naturally that would be a first step. But I wonder though, how has the public been educated, or how has the CCR helped this initiative? Because what I do understand on the ground is the pushback is we don't need that. What has been happening in the background to educate the public as to the importance of this, and also the need? Well, we don't need a referendum in order for this amendment to be made. So what has been done to educate the public?
Right. No, as I've said time and time and time and time again, civil society and including bar associations, and bar associations, I'm not speaking just about in Grenada, but collectively throughout the region, must play an important role in public legal education and leading that drive for constitution reform. What has been our experience? The real experience in this region. Our politics, not through the fault of any individuals, that's the system we have inherited. We have inherited adversarial politics. And what happens is that in adversarial politics, the role of the opposition is to oppose what the government does, and the role of the government is to say what a bad opposition there is, and every cycle possibly to describe each other as the worst government and the worst opposition, because everybody, it's an adversarial system and the best one wins. The aim is to get into political office. Now that kills lots of initiatives, great initiatives, because what happens is that the opposition would never want the government to look good. And when I say opposition, I mean opposition generally. So what did we have and what have we learned from constitution reform in Grenada? Grenada took bold steps in 2016 and 2018 to introduce certain bills for constitutional reform. Those bills, in 2016, 7 bills in all, those bills were defeated in a referendum. And it was felt now, 2 years later, that the best performing bill in the 2016 referendum was the CCJ bill. Government and opposition said we support the CCJ. And then we went into a referendum. The referendum failed again. No, that was in 2018. Fast forward, and at that time, it was said we need more public education. We need more consultation. We need more education on the Constitution. Great. From the week after in 2016, I was back doing structured public education. And from 2018, a week after, the referendum, and in which some promoted as a defeat, that back with public education up to today. But you know, those who make the most noise, don't, referendum done, new topic. There's no structured education about the Constitution. Those are nice sounding words then. It basically evades the main issue and life continues as normal. Now we have a new issue. We need more education. We need more consultation. We need to respect process. And the reality is, many times, not just in relation to the Constitution, you open things for consultation, and the very people who complain the most don't participate in it. That's part of our realities. And when you have politics, so for example, I've been involved, Dr. Alexis was involved intimately in the 2016-2018 process. And now you hear in relation to the change of the oath of allegiance. Listen, in 2016 and 2018, and not from official opposition, but opposition supporters say, listen, in 2016 and 2018 we tried, they block it, we can't make them look good now. We had, irrespective of what's the issue, we had to oppose it. Right? Because they opposed us in 2016 and 2018. We can't look at important national issues through partisan glasses. And that is why civil society has an important role to play in that process of constitutional reform. And that is why it is no accident either that it is the CCJ, CCR, an independent, non-partisan group that have tabled and have advocated for these changes or the amendment to the oath of allegiance. And Dr. Alexis, in fact, who first led in January 2024, and his aim then was to have it for the 50th anniversary of independence on the 7th of February 2024. And there was a whole set of discussion. The 50th anniversary date was missed. And then fast forward now, we had the 51st anniversary, and now we 17 months later, and we hear more consultation, more process is needed before we can amend a simple part of the Constitution that just adjust the oath of allegiance, not saying no oath of allegiance, that simply says we change the oath from swearing an oath to His Majesty the King, his heirs and successors, replace those 6 words with 1 word: Grenada. Swear allegiance to Grenada. And that falls in line with what we have been doing in Grenada since 7th of February 1974. Singing an anthem that pledges allegiance to Grenada. Repeating a pledge that pledges allegiance to Grenada. And the people who vote in the politicians every year, and that's why every 5 years, and you have the various winners in the constituency seats who are now qualified automatically to sit in the House of Representatives as parliamentarians of the lower house. They then pledge allegiance to the king, his heirs and successors. And we are saying philosophically, 52 years of independence, approaching 52 years of independence, that we have to change those symbols and focus again on Grenada. And it is no offense to the king. I'm sure the king would support such a move. We are independent sovereign nations. And so the debate somehow has shifted to whether we need referendum or not. Of course, CCR says we don't need a referendum. Those who set the legislative agenda, the executive cabinet, and the legal affairs division that advises on these matters, say we don't need a referendum. And therefore, the central issue really is not about referendum or no referendum. Those who feel so strongly about it can have their day in court. Mm-hmm. If they feel so strongly about it. But the issue is, in a country as Grenada that has a history of anti-colonial struggle, going back to Uriah Buzz Butler, Carey, Marshall, Bishop, Tillman Thomas, Keith Mitchell, now Deacon Mitchell, all of our leaders have spoken about Grenada and its independence, Grenadianism. We focusing on CARICOM and building our links as a people with a common history and a common struggle, that we should remove those vestiges of colonialism. As a conscious people, we should do so, and therefore, that's what the bills are about. There are 2 bills, one which focuses on parts of the Constitution which require public officials to swear oaths of allegiance, and those parts of the Constitution are not deeply entrenched, and therefore do not require a referendum on the face of it. And those are the sections of the Constitution not listed in what is called Schedule 1. And just to simplify this talk about Schedule 1 and Schedule 3, Schedule 1 contains the sections of the Constitution. If you require amendment, you must go to a referendum. So the sections that we refer to in Bill number 1 would not require a referendum to do the change. And Bill number 2, so both are about the change of the oath of allegiance. It will affect sections that are deeply entrenched. In other words, to change those sections, you will require a referendum. But we are not changing or advocating a change of the sections, and those are sections 21, which deal with the oath of allegiance for the acting Governor General. We also have section 35, 3 or thereabout, which deals with the change of the oath of the supervisor of elections, the oath of allegiance by the supervisor of elections. And then you have section 83, another deeply entrenched section, which deals with the oath of allegiance by members of the Public Service Commission. And you have a 5-member Public Service Commission. They take oaths. Now, those are listed. So, the bill number 2, there are 2 bills, just isolates the sections of the Constitution that are affected by the oath, the oath change, the change in the content of the oath. And you have those listed as 21, 35, and section 83. But here it is said, and that's when you know, hear all the talk about this Schedule 1 and Schedule 3. Simply put, as I said, Schedule 1 contains the list of sections in the Constitution that would require a referendum if you want to change it. And in Schedule 1, there is listed there Schedule 2 of the Constitution. Meaning, if you have to change Schedule 2 of the Constitution, which requires which addresses the Elections and Boundaries Commission, it relates to that, then you will need a referendum. But Section 3 or Schedule 3 is not mentioned in Schedule 1. And therefore we say that Schedule 3 is not subject to a referendum because the Schedule 1 expressly states the provisions, including Schedule 2, that where you require a referendum if you want to make a change. All Schedule 3 does. Schedule 3 contains the contents of the oath of allegiance and the oath of office. In this change, we are not concerned about the oath of office. We are concerned with the oath of allegiance. And therefore, and it's a relatively short oath. It's I-X, pledge allegiance to His Majesty, his heirs, and successors. And you are changing that for replacing it to a pledge of allegiance to Grenada. So it's not a substantive change. All the sections that are deeply entrenched will read the same. There's no amendment to it. Will read the same after these amendments are made. And that is important to understand. If they were not reading the same, then you can say they are being amended, substantively amended. But just think about it logically and by virtue of common sense. Is one going to say that for an independent sovereign country, gaining independence more than 51 years, that you have to go to a referendum to change the oath of allegiance that affects, in fact, as I say, mainly parliamentarians, because they are the largest block of people that would be affected by the change. Parliamentarians and ministers, but to be a minister of government, you must be a parliamentarian. So 28 parliamentarians, 15 members of the House of Representatives, and 13 members of the Senate would be affected, and just some others. Supervisor of elections, content of vote, acting Governor General, members of the Public Service Commission.
Yeah, Rob,
Mainly.
some Jarastafari is asking, when the oath is changed, does the uniform of the RGPF and the prison service change?
No.
Yeah.
That oath of allegiance has absolutely nothing to do with anything but the oath.
Right.
Nothing else changes.
So it doesn't touch and concern the functions of the Governor General?
Sorry?
Somebody asked me that last night on a different program. And I'm just asking you for, right, good.
No, it will just affect the oath that the Governor General takes.
And someone also asked, what's about the different honors and the different honors, like the King's Honors List, MB, CB, if it will be that those are no longer available to Grenadians?
Not at all. It does not affect that in any way. And it's
Only
important that these questions are asked because there is this concern. So, for example, in terms of honors, what would affect that is if we move to a republic. Because now we have a local honors on our Republican system. Because under a Republican system, you have your own local president. It's not a head of state representing the king.
Yep.
It's a head of state representing the people. And therefore, you have an honors list. So, for example, the designation of King's Counsel in Trinidad moved to senior counsel under a Republican state. In Barbados, that is about 3 or 4 years ago, moved to Republican status. A King's Counsel, therefore, automatically becomes a senior counsel. So you would have a separate set of designations under a Republican state. But this issue of the change of oath of allegiance, at the risk of repetition, over and over and over again, it only affects the contents of the oath, full stop and stop.
Yeah. I noticed, based on what I understood for a period of time, is that the idea, I think the CCR, that was the idea that that it will be good if this change is made to coincide with Emancipation Day. I noticed that Bert was here. The Jamaicans thought it of importance and of significance if they could actually file that application by August 1st. I just want you to comment on the symbolism of this and the importance of it or non-importance of it.
It's significant symbolism. You know, and symbolism is important, right? Critical, especially, you know, identity is crucial. How we identify ourselves as a people with a history of all kind of struggles going back to the days of slavery. So the symbolism is important, you know, the whole self-respect, the self-esteem as a people making the changes. And you know what we have grown accustomed to? People making change for us. So we get a constitution in 1974. That constitution wasn't even the subject of a debate in Parliament. That constitution, and despite its importance as the supreme law, it was basically handed to us. And therefore, we have taken it. And we have taken it gingerly, believing that we can't change it as a people. And even after 50-something years, symbolically trying to change, even, well, I wouldn't say meets with resistance, but there are voices in certain quarters that are even, and I think genuinely confused as to what it would mean, because our minds are so conditioned in a way. You know, it was a referendum time, but people ask, for example, if you make certain changes, like police won't get pay. There was a line that police might not get a salary the next month.
Okay.
Right? Because it's the Royal Grenada Police Force. And therefore, if you touch it, people won't get paid. It's Her Majesty's prisons, and people genuinely believe that. And that is why only empowerment of people through education, and that is why I believe so firmly and passionately in public education, because once people are educated, then superficial and fickle things would really move them. So what I would like to see, and that's why leaders have to speak up, that's why advocates must advocate and advocate fearlessly. What and Bert, I was so impressed when the point was made by Bert. In fact, that's part of the highlights of his presentation. You're not only filing an action, well, a petition, but you are doing it symbolically on Emancipation or just before Emancipation Day. It carries strong symbolism. And
But he actually said the day, you know.
He said Emancipation Day.
Oh, he said we have 11 more days.
Right, to Emancipation Day. So I suspect it will be either on Emancipation Day or very close to Emancipation Day. What I can say,
I'm saying he said that they want to do it. They plan to do it on the day.
Or on Emancipation Day.
In honor of the ancestors.
Right.
So that's what they have set out to do. It is going to be done on the 1st of August, Emancipation Day.
Yes. Well, the Privy Council might be on holiday from then. The summer holiday.
Yeah.
Yes, but again, as I said, it carries important symbolism. And certainly what I wish in these circumstances, and I think other members of the CCR feel the same, that on Emancipation Day this year, which will be the first in our history to be a public holiday, because before we had it the first Monday in August. So Emancipation Day came and went in Grenada with little fanfare, right? The big day is a holiday and there's a time to fit, right? Emancipation Day is gone. For the very first Emancipation Day that we are celebrating as a public holiday, what I would like to see, I would love to see, all parliamentarians in particular, all parliamentarians take the new oath. And not just members of the government side, but all members of the opposition and government in the House of Representatives, opposition and government in the Senate, together with independent senators, all 28 of them at some public gathering. And I have not, it's a pity Ali left because there were some questions I had to ask about the day itself, because it's all well and good to have a holiday. But I would hope that there is some major activity on this public holiday.
They have in St. Andrews.
Sorry?
I think the plan is to have a major activity in St. Andrews.
Right. And as part, whatever that activity is, if we can have all parliamentarians in a show of unity, redo the oath. In any event, there is a 7-day period when under the bills, when the oath, even though it is not physically retaken, but everyone is deemed to have taken that oath upon the expiry of 7 days. But the show of public symbolism, I believe, is important.
Yeah. So, Ruggs, I just want us to just recognize the sponsors at this time, and then when we come back, we'll just take closing. Gel Professional Solutions Inc., Gem FM carried this program on FM radio out of Canada, and also Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union, GTAL.
Attention all workers, your health and safety at work are critical. At Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union, we are dedicated to ensuring you have a safe and secure work environment. If you encounter unsafe conditions or are involved in an accident, take immediate actions. Report it to the company, your shop steward, and make sure it reaches your union. Your health and safety is a priority, and a strong union means a strong voice for your rights. Don't wait. Address concerns right away and protect your well-being. For a safer workplace and a better quality of life, stand with the Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union. Together, we can create a safer, healthier work environment for everyone.
Okay, so we can, Ruggs, I just know you just make some closing remarks before we sign off.
Yes, well, just to say again, congratulations on another great program. I think both sharing those experiences in Jamaica is really, really eye-opening. I've been following it in the media mainly, but it's really makes a big difference when the man himself behind the move comes on and you know, speaks directly to the people. So congratulations on that. With respect to Emancipation Day, I really do hope, I've not been hearing much about it. I've heard that there would be an activity in St. Andrews, and I hope it's not just another activity, that there is some strong symbolism associated with the very first celebration or commemoration of emancipation by the powers by the powers, and that symbolism could be marked in a very significant way, small but significant. As the saying goes, money can't buy everything. And, you know, there's something called self-respect, you know, and self-esteem, and being concerned about our own identity as a nation. And I really want to appeal to people out there to let us enjoy that significant moment. Put partisan politics behind us. There are certain things, and among those things, constitutional amendment, that we badly need, that is there not to benefit one party over another, but to benefit all the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. And when we are approaching constitutional reform, it's the way that has been approached in several other countries where referendum is not required, because people take the cue from the politicians on these issues. And if the politicians don't advocate actively for it, then people tend to be hesitant to also go with it. And I want to also appeal to civil society. The CCR has set the pace with these two bills, lobbying government and lobbying opposition, because both government and opposition were spoken to, an agreement secured from both government and opposition for the bill. The bill was explained to both entities, what it was intended, and both, commendably, both embraced it. And of course, it has to go through the proper channels under the Constitution, which is Parliament, in order to have it passed. So I really do hope that this week, soon before Emancipation Day, that those two bills are passed so that we can comfortably take, our leaders can comfortably take the oath of allegiance on Emancipation Day.
Okay, Aisha, you just want to close off?
Yes, I would. Thank you so much, Mr. Ferguson, King's Counsel, for your time this evening. We really appreciate your insights and your thoughtful comments and commentary to the show. We'd like to also thank Arley and Bert as well for joining us earlier this evening. We are looking forward to August 1st, collectively as a people, and let us see what that day brings.
Yep. So thank you all. See you next week, which will be the final program before we take a break for August. So see you next week. You're saying something, Aisha?
Oh no, I just wanted to thank our audience as well. All the persons who commented this evening,
Yes,
Jackson, Jomo, Claude.
And we have one last comment which you may want to read.
Oh, Barbara Andrew says, but after 51 years, we still have a royal police force, and that is okay, right? And all other things relating to our colonial past could stay. And she said sad.
Yes, and I want to say that those don't require any referendum. These could be very simply changed.
Mm-hmm.
Very simply.
Listen, James, but you need to have a police force.
Yes, of course.
But
the
just
name.
the names, yeah? Okay.
Yeah. Yes, the name.
Although the Constitution probably said something about the name of the police, but that's a different matter. Okay, so good night and thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Okay.